What happens when you die in 13 Reasons Why?
You get reborn as a fey peasant.
Hi and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben.
And I'm Kay.
And today we are reviewing Cursed, a Netflix original series.
Cursed is a reimagining of the Arthurian legend told through the eyes of Nimue, a young heroine with a mysterious gift.
Catherine Langford from 13 Reasons Why, the first season. You'll recognise her from that. Obviously, she is one of the main protagonists in this series. There are 10 episodes. Each of the episodes are just under an hour, so it's a full 10 hours. Netflix gave us the screeners, and I have to say, we went from not really wanting to watch the series to really, well, me, I was sad when it ended. And that's a big shift in tone. We watched the first episode and then we kind of didn't want to watch it again. So we brought ourselves back to watching the second episode, and then I was like, it's okay. But by the time the third episode kicks in, I went from not really liking the series to, wow, this is really good. And I think there's a shift in tone and story-wise that we can talk about.
So the things that I really liked about the series were things like the costuming. I thought the costuming was really fun. Really quite flamboyant, particularly, well, maybe flamboyant's not quite the right word, but the Red Paladins, like, they were just wonderfully...
God wills it in red in style.
Yeah, just, ugh. Yeah, no, I enjoyed the sets, I enjoyed the costumes, I enjoyed the locations, I thought it was all put together quite well. I thought that some of the acting was really top-notch. Some of it was a bit there were a few characters that I loved, and I was really happy every time they were on screen. Like Merlin, he was great. And he just had a caliber, a weightiness to him that I really appreciated when I saw him on screen.
Fans of Vikings will recognise him as one of the main characters from Vikings, and he's fantastic in that. So happy to see him in this.
Yeah. I struggled a little bit with Nimue's character, just her progression, her journey, I guess. Difficult role to play, because I wasn't quite sure where they were pitching it. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Okay, so there's been many iterations of the Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
There's been so many. I mean, if you can go and look on IMDb, from cartoons, The Sword and the Stone, to other series, to other very bad films that people often refer to, going, not another one of these. So when you saw this trailer, I think it would be fine to say, if you rolled your eyes in the back of your head and you went, another one of these.
Another one.
And I think my expectation that it was going to be very teeny. And so the first episode definitely felt like it was catered towards an MTV demographic. So that's like...
What's an MTV demographic?
Well, Teen Wolf is MTV TV series. So it's that sort of age group.
Okay.
Right? So they do TV series that are catered towards that. So if you're thinking Vampire Diaries, that kind of tongue-in-cheek, romance, that kind of demographic I was thinking that it was. And it somewhat is. But the age restriction to this is 18.
Yeah.
And so you have a young feeling, an Arthurian legend that is catered towards adults, really.
Yeah.
And so some of the time, especially that first episode, those first two episodes, I'm looking at this, my brain is going, who is this for?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's very young in some of what they're showing. But when they show violence, they do not shy away from it. Like people being decapitated, bodies being chopped in half, people's heads just like blood spraying everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of gore in this series. It's almost worth equating it to a smaller Game of Thrones. I would say that is the case because, it's partly the case. There's no sex and there's no swearing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of gore. So there's really like, okay, if you're going to do gore, but we're not going to do any sex or swearing. Okay, that's like, I'm trying to figure out, like, where's your line?
It's like PG, but with loads of gore.
And then the scope of it is much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And then the character development, when they were doing the hold up a minute to go for one of our favorite
side quest
game, what's her name?
Girlfriend Reviews.
She does this thing whenever her boyfriend goes off on a side quest. She goes, hold up a minute. And that's what I feel like this
Yeah.
series did a lot of the time. The main arc, with the Lady in the Lake arc, with the Excalibur sword, although they don't call it that, is very short. If it was just that, it'd probably be about 3 to 4 episodes. But they have a lot of character development in the side characters and a lot of individual stories that do weave into the main story, and it is a lot of fun to watch. I didn't once I got past that like beginning bit, the little bit
Yeah.
of padding, which I wasn't sure what it was trying to do, then I was like, okay. By midway point, I was invested with some of the characters, but there's parts in the storyline that it very feels like Game of Thrones. And if you've seen Game of Thrones, what they do with some of their characters, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Nobody is safe.
Which does give an air of intensity and worry, which brings about a beat and tone that isn't there in the music. It's just there behind the scenes. So you're like, what's going to happen? So you're always on edge. So it's like a tone that they've created without intentionally shoving it in your face, going, now what's going to happen? Which
Yeah.
I think is very clever.
Yeah, it's good. I think maybe one of the reasons that we struggled a little bit at the beginning is because they've taken the Arthurian legend and then they've like put it in a pot, stirred it around, thrown in some spices, thrown in some other stuff, and then they like baked it.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. It's kind of like they start revealing the character names and you're like, but that's, hang on a minute, how's that going to work? And how's this person that person? And you're trying to figure it out and you kind of have to just go, you know what? They've done their own recipe here. They've done their own thing entirely.
Got a new recipe.
Yeah.
That's it. I've come up with a new recipe.
Yeah, which I think
flavour.
which I think is good. I really enjoyed the Fae side of things, and you are, well, as a viewer, I found myself immediately being on their side. I think
Yeah.
it does lend itself to showing you that the Fae are the good guys. And the
Yeah.
kings and the queens and the paladins are definitely not the good guys. But as the latter episodes, they do start giving backgrounds to the bad guys, which I really liked, because the first few episodes, it tended to be, I'm evil because I'm evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the bad guy
I
because
was written this way.
I get dressed in black, so I'm the bad guy. And I was hoping they were going to address some of that. And they do. And when they start fleshing it out, you start not really feeling for the bad guys, but you understand why. And giving
Yeah.
your enemies a decent story, that's the way to go for you to really enjoy your protagonist's journeys.
Because magic.
I thought the score was pretty good. There were times when it went into kind of MTV music
Video.
with words, and I think we don't need that. It needs to be just soundtrack. It needs to be score.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be words in this because
You
this
mean
isn't the time.
You mean lyrics?
Yeah, no lyrics. No speaking.
No speaky.
No. Just instrumental music, ambience that's to set the tone. And there is some of that, but sometimes they do the voices, and that does take you out of it. There were times when I was trying to figure out, well, what world is this? Because we're obviously living in an Earth realm where there is magic, there's fae, so it's not real. An Arthurian legend is based on a fabled story that we all know about. By the time you get to the last episode, that last episode really hypes up the action. The set pieces are so much bigger. I love all the sets in this series. I thought they were fantastic, especially when you follow Merlin. There's some places that he goes to because he's a real wizard. That just looks spectacular. So I really appreciated the craftsmanship in some of the sets, the costumes like you mentioned. If I had to nitpick at anything that kind of irritated me probably throughout the 10 episodes is the way they do transitions. So they have this weird artwork that flows from one scene to another scene. It doesn't always happen, but it probably happens about 5 or 6 times between each episode. And the artwork itself looks great. I imagine it took some time, but it really does kind of take you out of the episode, the action, the moments of intensity that you were just experiencing it, and then they make it's like a weird kind of comic book, which again makes me go, well, who's this for? Because it feels like it's for a younger audience, just that storytelling, like it's like a storybook, like we're turning the page. And that felt weird. I know it's an Arthurian legend, it is a story, but if you're catering to an older
if you're making it an
demographic,
18,
then you should make it for an older demographic.
I guess.
That's just a little thing that really irritated me. I liked the artwork, but I wasn't sure how it was furthering what they were trying to tell. So had they just kind of done what everybody else does, do a wipe with a tree, it would have been a much quicker moment to the next scene, and it would have carried on the flow. But it really does hold the pace, which is a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
So
it didn't bother me as much as it bothered you.
It obviously bothered me. I would love to be in the writer's room in some of those moments when someone said, yeah, but I want to do this, and someone went, yeah, but the reason why I think that this is good is because of this reason. I'd love to know the full process behind that.
The reason, yeah. I just realised you said there's no sex. There is one sex scene.
There is one sex scene, but
it is fairly,
doesn't show anything.
Yeah. Actually, I mistook his boobs for her boobs. You never see her boobs. You do see his boobs. And I thought they were hers.
We're not saying who's having sex, though. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Just a sex scene. If this was Game of Thrones, you would see willies and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of gore, lots of decent action set pieces, which I was quite surprised by. I expected, from the trailer, there to be action scenes, but I didn't think the swordplay would be very good. And it's not great. It's not like, wow, this is John Wick style. But there are scenes where I was like, yeah, this is really entertaining. They've done a good job here. So I was really impressed in it. As an overall, once the project comes together, once those episodes and the story is really hyped up, you've figured out what each side's character is doing, I felt invested in those characters. I felt for them. I was on that journey. I was rooting for them, which I definitely wasn't at the beginning.
I just wanted to say that I thought that some of the characters' swordplay was excellent.
Yeah.
Some of it was pants.
Well, you have a mixture there. So, I am looking forward to the second season, and I always say this when it comes to these origin stories. I kind of wish you did away with the origin stories and you just put us in the story that happens afterwards, because that's often the story we want told. Where this origin story has been told so many times in so many different ways, it's often the next bit of the story that we want to know. One last thing I want to talk about. We talked a little bit about the prosthetics, but throughout the series there are very interesting costume designs. There's one particular one called Moon Lady. There's a Moon Lady. There's an old Moon Lady, a Fae type of character that I wish I could remember her proper name right now, but she looked fantastic. And I would say that the Fae are the most interesting costume design, prosthetics, really added to that fantasy element that kind of puts you in the zone, which makes it a lot of fun. So yeah, I originally was going to give this a C. I'm now giving this an A-. So.
Ooh. I'm going to go with a solid B.
Cool. How dare you. Thanks so much for watching this review, but most of all, until next time, remember,
live long and Tuesday.